Incredible moment. Homeless hero saves woman with heart condition, unveiling her shocking secret. Alex squinted against the afternoon sun, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting from the nearby cafe, mixing unpleasantly with the stench of garbage he sifted through. The world around him moved swiftly, the click of heels on pavement punctuating his solitude. He felt their eyes, disdain, curiosity, judgment, as he rummaged for leftovers. He wasn't just a veteran, he was lost, each day a battle against memories that never faded. A soldier once, now a man scavenging for survival, dreaming of dignity amidst disdain. His fingers brushed against a half-eaten muffin, and for a moment he hesitated, battling that inner voice telling him he didn't deserve even this. Suddenly chaos erupted. A woman in an elegant suit crumpled to the sidewalk, her grocery bags spilling onto the concrete. The crowd that gathered hesitated. Shock paralyzed them. Alex's heart raced. Something snapped him into action. A gut instinct, perhaps. She needed help. Ignoring his instincts to shrink back, he rushed to her side, performing CPR, awkwardly at first, but desperate to breathe life back into her. Every push of his hand sent waves of memories crashing against his resolve, faces of comrades lost in war, his muscles tensed with the fear of failure, of being seen as a nobody again. "Come on, please," he murmured, a tense prayer escaping his lips. Hands pushed through the crowd, some of them filming, capturing his desperate attempt. In those moments, as silence fell heavy, he didn't just feel their stares. He felt hope flicker within him, fierce and unexpected. A hero, they would say. Would they see him differently? Would he finally be recognized as something more than just a discarded man? Before the paramedics arrived, she gasped for air, fingers twitching as she clung to consciousness. The crowd erupted into applause, the distance between Alex and them narrowing as they rallied around him like he was the saint they needed. Cameras flashed. Headlines would soon scream his name, but the praise felt heavy, and deep down he grappled with a gnawing thought. Was this recognition he sought, or merely another facade covering his shame? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Days slipped by as he faced the newfound attention, the media's portrait of him, a homeless hero. It radiated hope, but cast shadows on his reality. Despite the accolades, he felt the familiar tightening in his chest, the creeping irritation of others' pity. When Sarah, the woman he rescued, awoke, her story began to intertwine with his, each revelation causing more friction within him. She shared her pressures, her burdens, weighing heavy against his existence. While she had fought against her lofty family's expectations, Alex had battled a war within himself that nearly tore him apart. How could they, from such opposite worlds, find solace together? As he stepped further into the spotlight, he felt the weight of scrutiny, questions about his past, his struggles tugging him back, threatening to uproot the fragile sense of self-worth he had begun to nurture. The insecure battlefield of his mind was teetering. With each passing day, their encounters generated flickers of understanding, yet looming over them were the ghosts of their pasts, the shame, the judgments, the fear of inadequacy. The tension was palpable, the air thick with uncertainty as they prepared for the family reunion that could redefine their lives forever. Would acceptance or condemnation wait for them on the other side? Alex could almost feel the tremor of heartbreak as unresolved feelings began to surface, knotting within him, a haunting reminder that while fame could rewrite stories, it never escaped one's truth. Alex stood before the cracked mirror in the dingy restroom of the diner, the fluorescent lights flickering above him as if echoing the turmoil within. He examined the reflection, a grim visage of rugged resilience enveloped in scruffy clothes. Adrenaline from Sarah's rescue still coursed through him, but it no longer felt like the victorious rush of a hero. Instead, it morphed into something heavier, a burdensome echo, a reminder that the attention he craved was also the very thing he feared. "Why does it matter?" he muttered to himself. "What am I worth without that moment?" The familiar weight of shame gripped his heart. He had done something admirable, yet it felt like an illusion, a mask over something more profound. Gone were the days he battled physically on the front lines. Now he wrestled with an internal war, one that pulled at his sense of identity. As he left the restroom, he caught a glimpse of a newspaper on the table, the headline touting him as a hero. He couldn't help but roll his eyes. How could they simplify his journey, a mosaic of pain neatly reduced to a single story of salvation? When he stepped outside, the noise of the city rushed back, suffocating him with its fervent pace. Commuters surged around him, their hurried lives contrasting sharply with his stillness, every glance a reminder of what remained unspoken. He approached the park where he often found some peace, the sprawling green offering solace amidst the chaos, but today it felt different. Today he had purpose. Finding a bench, he sat down, desperate to untangle his thoughts. Sarah, with her polished routine and refined world, was set to return to her family soon. The weight of their upcoming reunion muffled his breath. Would their connection wear thin under scrutiny? Would they reject him, reduce him to a cautionary tale of failure? Frustration flared. The fear of being left behind gnawed at him fiercely. How can I explain what it's like, he thought, ruminating on his experiences, the battles fought not just in the field, but within his very essence. He drew in a deep breath. I can't keep running from who I am. Days spent outside the spotlight were conducive to reflection. He recognized the arduous path he needed to tread. He needed to confront his past, not with shame, but with an acknowledgement of who had shaped him. Each conversation with Sarah unearthed shards of his resilience, but to forge ahead, he had to own his story. That fierce sense of survival had been honed through loss and regret, and it was high time that he stopped relegating himself to the margins. Suddenly, inspiration struck. What if he could share his story, not just as a homeless hero, but as a man who had faced the depths of despair? The moment began to unfold. He envisioned a blog or a video series that could resonate with others trapped in the shadows. He could help others confront their realities, could show them they weren't alone in their searching. The determination burgeoned within him, revitalizing his spirit. Choosing to embrace vulnerability instead of hiding beneath layers of shame, he resolved to reach out to Sarah. Would she understand? Would they collaborate to bridge the gap that separated them? As thoughts of sharing ignited a flicker of urgency within him, a stark realization dawned. He still had much to learn. Confronting his truths would require strength he struggled to find. But as Alex stared at the horizon, profound resolve settled within him. He couldn't wait any longer. It was time to face the fear, the past, and the looming judgment of others head-on. But as he gathered the courage to act, a figure from his past emerged from the shadows of the park, an unwelcome reminder of everything he'd fought to escape. Would this encounter destabilize everything he aimed to build, or would it turn into the defining moment he needed for true redemption? Alex's heart raced as he squinted against the sun, his gaze locking onto the familiar figure emerging from the trees. Marcus, the embodiment of everything he had worked to escape. 1,000 memories rushed to the forefront, tainted with regret and uncertainty. The knot in his stomach tightened painfully, demanding he either confront his fears or flee from them once more. "What are you doing here?" Marcus's tone was casual, too casual, but the intent behind his eyes seared through the pretense. Alex could see the storm forming behind them, the same one that had once marked his own life before he'd chosen a different path. "Just thinking," Alex replied, his voice steadier than the turmoil within. The bench felt like a haven and a prison simultaneously. "Thinking? About what? The great city that turned its back on you, the promises you broke." Marcus took a step closer, his words wrapped in condemnation. The urge to defend himself flared, but Alex gritted his teeth, unwilling to fall back into the same arguments that had defined their past. "I'm not that person anymore," he said quietly, forcing the conviction into his words. The statement felt strange, yet liberating. A piece of armor against the past, threatening to engulf him again. "Not that person. You're living outside, Alex. You're a ghost of the man you used to be," Marcus hissed, stepping forward until their faces were inches apart. Anger bubbled beneath the surface, but Alex kept his posture relaxed. Each confrontation with Marcus had typically spiraled into chaos. But this time, he wanted to break the cycle. He wanted to own the narrative surrounding his life. What if he transformed this tense moment into a chance for understanding, for demonstrating how much he was changing? "Maybe that's true," Alex acknowledged, meeting Marcus's gaze with surprising steadiness. "But I'm working on it. I'm trying to share my story, to help others who are in dark places. I want to be more than just a shadow." A flicker of surprise darted across Marcus's face, and for the first time, doubt replaced arrogance. "A blog? A video series? You think people want to hear from someone like you?" His tone shifted, from attacking to curious almost casually. "Yes, I do," Alex asserted. The conviction in his voice caught them both off guard. "People are looking for connection, Marcus. They want to know they aren't alone in their struggles. I want to give them that." Marcus paused, the air thick with contemplation. "And you think that matters? That anyone will listen? More than anything." The two men stood in silence, the reality of their past wrapping around them like an uninvited shroud. Alex dared to hope for a moment of connection, not confrontation. "I'll admit, I'm surprised. But don't think for a second that it'll be easy." Marcus dropped his eyes, suddenly reflecting on a time when their paths had diverged. "I know," Alex replied, "but I'm done running from who I am. I can't let fear dictate my future anymore." For a fleeting moment, a mutual understanding passed between them. Then, as quickly as it came, it fizzled out. "Good luck with that," Marcus said, his defensiveness snapping back into place. Just like that, the moment was lost. As Marcus turned to walk away, Alex called out after him, "Wait, can we talk?" The urgency in his voice surprised even himself, but he refused to let the slip pass without action. Marcus moderately shook his head. "I'm not the person you're looking for, Alex. You need to find someone who can help you rise, not drag you back down." With that, Marcus disappeared into the park, leaving Alex standing at the precipice of uncertainty once more, breathless, wrestling with the remnants of his past, and suddenly aware of the chasm that still lay between who he wanted to be and what he had left behind. The confrontation unraveled something deeper within him, a new determination, igniting his vision for what was ahead. He needed to reconnect with Sarah, not just as a potential collaborator, but as someone who could help reinforce his resolve. Feeling the weight of urgency push him forward, he turned to his phone, fingers hovering over the screen. It was time for action. But just as he prepared to send a text, his gaze caught another figure nearby, a woman seeming lost in her own world, eyes filled with unspoken struggles. Alex hesitated, his heart racing once more. What if this was a chance to forge the connection he yearned for? What could he offer her, and would it empower him in the process? As he pondered the potential outcome, he felt an overwhelming sense of urgency. The moment had arrived, not just for him, but for anyone who dared to seek help in a world that often felt cold and indifferent. Would he take the leap and approach her, or retreat into his own fear? Only one way to find out. He took a deep breath, preparing to step into the unknown. The moment hung in the air like a charged atmosphere, full of possibility and unyielding anxiety. Alex felt the weight of his decision pressing on his chest. The woman sat alone on a park bench, her eyes cast downward, yet her aura resonated with an energy that drew him in. Each second stretched, thickening his resolve into something tangible. With a deep breath, Alex took a hesitant step forward. As he approached, he could see her features more clearly, sunken eyes, a pale complexion, and tremors coursing through her fingers. He wondered what burdens she carried, what pain lurked beneath her surface. "Hey," he greeted softly, instantly aware of how vulnerable the word felt. "Is everything all right?" She looked up, surprise mingled with something deeper. Was it fear or longing? I'm okay," she replied. But even in the short response, the quiver in her voice betrayed her. "Okay," he echoed, searching for the right words to bridge the gap between them. "I'm Alex. I just noticed you looked lost in thought. If you want to talk, I'm here to listen." The woman studied him for a moment, as if assessing his sincerity and weighing the risks of sharing her reality. "I don't know if you can help," she said finally, her voice trembling more noticeably now. "I have a condition. I'd rather not burden you with it." "Please," he urged, "you're not a burden. I'm also here because I've walked through some dark times. I know how helpful it is to share your struggles." Her defenses lowered a fraction as she considered him. There was a flicker of hope in her eyes. "It's just that sometimes I feel like nobody can understand." "I get that," he replied, fully engaging with her words, pushing past the remnants of his own insecurities. "I've felt invisible too, lost in my own mental battles." Something in his honesty seemed to resonate with her. She took a deep breath, releasing a long-held tension. "I have a heart condition," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It makes it difficult for me to... it's complicated." "Look," Alex interrupted gently, "whatever it is, I want to help. I think we can help each other." The woman hesitated, her vulnerability wrestling with a sense of caution. "How?" she asked, her brow furrowing. Confusion didn't just cloud her eyes. It reflected a deeper skepticism about connections, about trust. "By sharing our stories," he proposed. "Maybe we both just need someone to listen, someone who understands that healing begins by acknowledging our battles." He watched as her expression shifted, from guarded to softening, like a flower opening under the right light. Their conversation could be a turning point, one he desperately needed. This wasn't just about her. It was an opportunity for him, too, to prove that he could make a difference, even from within his limitations. "I'm afraid it's more complicated than that," she replied, swallowing hard, her eyes misting. "And I'm not sure I'll survive this." The admission hit Alex with a force that ignited something within him. This moment tested the very foundations of who he aspired to be. It struck a chord, fueling the determination he found just moments earlier with Marcus. To walk away now felt incomprehensible. "Let's figure it out together," he insisted, pushing through the gravity of her fear. "You're not alone in this. I won't let you face it by yourself." She looked deeply into his eyes, as if searching for the truth behind his words, and for the first time, cracks began to form in her facade of solitude. "Okay," she finally said, and the word carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken fights. Hope ignited, dancing in the uncertainty that hung between them. The air buzzed with potential. Two lost souls at a crossroads, ready to share their histories and learn from one another. The challenge of their unraveling selves sat heavily in the space between them, changing everything. Before he could even contemplate the ramifications, Alex felt anchored in a moment of triumph. He was setting foot in territory he had long shied away from, vulnerability. Only then did he realize he hadn't considered what that might mean moving forward, how it could redefine his pursuit of helping others. They had both taken a step toward healing, but now they needed to embrace what lay ahead. As they began to talk deeper, shadows from the past loomed ever louder in his mind. Would his renewed sense of purpose withstand the spirals of doubt that waited to pull him back? And could he truly guide another while still navigating his own maze? Questions loomed, but the thrill of possibility had a hold on him. They faced each other, fears and scars laid bare, and the moment felt charged with all that was to come, both promise and peril intertwining in a dance as he sensed a new chapter unfolding. What would they discover together? Would he rise or fall beneath the weight of this journey? Alex steeled himself for the challenge, acknowledging that no matter the answer, he was ready to embrace it. A few moments passed, and the noise of the bustling park faded into an ambient whisper, allowing Alex to focus solely on the woman before him. He felt a kindred spirit in her, a realization that their lives were intricately woven within the fabric of shared struggles. She shifted nervously on the bench, her hands folding and unfolding like leaves in a gentle breeze. "What's your name?" he asked, hoping to pull her further from the shadows she clung to. "Lila," she replied, the name a soft note carried on the air between them. "Lila," he acknowledged, savoring the way it rolled off his tongue, as if to cement their connection. "How long have you been dealing with your heart condition?" "Years," she said slowly. "I've been in and out of hospitals more times than I can count. It's exhausting." A fragile laugh escaped her lips, but it was laced with bitterness. The physical pain is one thing, but the emotional impact feels heavier. Her admission resonated deeply within him. Alex recalled countless nights spent buried under sheets of self-doubt, pondering how he could ever hope to make a difference in the lives of others when he could barely manage his own demons. Yet, witnessing Lila's vulnerability fueled the flicker of empowerment he was beginning to cultivate. "Exhausting is a great word for it," he said, nodding. "The battles we fight silently can feel endless." Lila's eyes glistened with an emotion he couldn't place. Was it gratitude, or perhaps something closer to fear? "You really think you can help me?" she asked, her voice breaking with an intensity that suggested she had yet to trust fully. "I'm not here to save you," he explained, feeling the weight of her skepticism. "But I'm willing to walk with you in this. Sometimes just knowing someone cares makes a difference." Silence hung between them, pregnant with possibilities. She shifted again, her fingers brushing over her heart, as if seeking comfort from the organ that betrayed her. "What if I'm not worth the trouble?" she whispered, a thread of helplessness weaving through her words. A pang of sorrow pierced through Alex. He understood the feeling, how it slithered into the corners of one's mind, poisoning thoughts of self-worth. "You are worth it, Lila. Everyone is. All of us have battles we rarely see, and connecting with one another is what helps us fight those battles." He remembered a pivotal moment from his past when a stranger had reached out during his darkest days. That single moment had shifted the path of his life. Standing here with Lila, he realized that this was his chance to be that stranger for someone else. "Can you tell me about the hardest time you faced with your condition?" he asked gently, recognizing that sharing could be a form of release for both of them. Her gaze dropped momentarily, lost in recollections only she could see. "Last year, I had a major episode. There were days I couldn't get out of bed. I felt like I was drowning, and every deep breath was a struggle." The tears she held back shimmered like liquid glass, teetering on the edge of release. "There were times when I really thought about giving up. It felt like the only option in front of me. Lila, you're here now. You chose to wake up and face another day." The strength in his own voice surprised him, emerging as if guided by a force greater than himself. "It means something. It means you're still fighting." She met his gaze, her barriers lowering inch by inch, walls of isolation beginning to crumble with the weight of his sincerity. As the sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting a golden hue on their surroundings, Alex felt a swelling sense of duty rising within him. Not only would he walk this path with Lila, but this journey was reawakening the dormant feelings of purpose that had long felt buried in layers of self-doubt. The gravity of their shared conversation solidified his resolve. This was more than a moment in the park. It was a pivotal shift in his life that would spiral outward into everything he hoped to achieve. But as Lila began to open up further about her fears and regrets, a new tension emerged within Alex. Could he maintain this renewed sense of self while digging deep into someone else's pain? Wasn't there a fine line between personal growth and risking his own emotional stability? He sensed that the next steps would require more of him than he had anticipated. They were about to delve into uncharted territory, a fragile space that could either fortify their bond or expose chasms of darkness he feared might engulf him. What hidden secrets lay in Lila's journey that could ultimately become intertwined with his? Could he navigate this path without losing himself in the process? The answers danced tantalizingly close, just out of reach as the sun began to set, casting an uncertain glow over their burgeoning connection. As the last rays of sunlight melted into the horizon, casting long shadows that intertwined across the ground, Alex found himself wrestling with the gravity of the moment. Lila's vulnerability was laid bare before him, a tapestry woven with threads of despair and resilience. Yet, as she shared her struggles, fragments of her story seemed inexplicably tied to his own, sparking an unsettling recognition between them. Lila's voice broke the stillness once more. "You really don't get it, do you?" Her gaze bore into him, searching for understanding. "People like me, sick and broken, are sometimes just invisible to the world." The strength of her conviction struck him. Why would anyone want to help someone who might drag them down? Shifting in his seat, Alex felt a ripple of unease. Could he truly manage the emotional weight that came with walking beside her? The question echoed in his mind, demanding acknowledgement. He knew what it meant to feel adrift, to wrestle with his worthiness. Yet there was a flicker of determination igniting within him, pushing against the walls of doubt that threatened to constrict his heart. "Because everyone deserves a chance, Lila," he countered, finding his voice steady. "No matter how broken they feel. I don't want to walk away from you when you need someone the most." Her expression softened, yet her skepticism lingered. "And what if I'm too much? What if I fail? People beat me down every day, Alex. I've learned to expect nothing but heartbreak." As she spoke, Alex realized that her fears mirrored his own. They were both standing at the precipice of vulnerability, precariously balanced between hope and fear. He felt an overwhelming urge to help, but the weight of uncertainty loomed large. He was determined to uplift Lila, but was he capable of withstanding the pressure of her struggles without fracturing under the strain? "I get it. Trust is hard," he admitted, folding his hands in his lap, feeling his own walls shaking. "But sometimes we need to take a leap. It's scary, but it's also how we find freedom." Her eyes glistened, and for the first time he saw a flicker of something other than pain, curiosity. "Freedom," she echoed softly. "Yes, freedom," he reaffirmed. "To choose to be more than the circumstances we've been handed. To learn from the hardships and share those lessons with others." Alex's mind flashed back to moments in his life when he had felt suppressed under layers of responsibility, unable to voice his aspirations. He had been whispering secrets to himself in silence, dreaming of forging a life filled with purpose. Perhaps this encounter with Lila was his invitation to embrace that path. "Okay," she said hesitantly, exhaling as if the weight pressing against her chest lightened ever so slightly. "I want to believe you, but how do we start?" A plan began to form in his mind, emerging from the depths of their shared conversation. This wasn't just about offering support, it was about active involvement, discovery, guiding each other toward a horizon of possibility. "Let's set small goals, things to look forward to. Together, we can find ways to lift each other. Would you be willing to track daily victories?" Lila's brow knitted as she pondered the proposal. "You mean like setting up a list of achievements?" "Exactly," he replied enthusiastically, a spark igniting between them. "It could be something as small as taking a walk or even journaling thoughts. We'll celebrate each step, no matter how small." For a moment she seemed lost in thought, the flicker of hope dancing precariously behind her guarded demeanor. "And if I fail, then we start again. It's not about perfection, it's about progress." An unfamiliar warmth blossomed in his chest as they spoke, an electricity of purpose that bypassed doubt. But he also felt the undercurrents of vulnerability flowing between them. He could sense Lila weighing her options, testing the waters of trust, but her hesitation only made him more resolute. "Let's not focus on the end game," he suggested gently. "Let's take this one day at a time. We'll both learn more about ourselves along the way." The corners of her lips twitched, fighting a smile that almost escaped. "All right, one day at a time." As they cemented their plan, an unsettling thought crept into Alex's mind. Was he prepared for the emotions that this journey might stir? He had ignited a change, yet in doing so, he felt the shadows of his own past creeping closer. What revelations remained in his or Lila's future? Would the journey unravel truths best left hidden? As night cloaked the park, the uncertainty hung in the air, foreshadowing challenges yet to come. With hearts entwined in shared resolve, they ventured further into the uncharted territory of healing, shadows trailing behind them like whispering ghosts desperate to reclaim the night. Alex woke the next morning to the sharp sound of his alarm, a relentless reminder that the world outside continued to turn, even as his own life felt momentarily suspended. The residual warmth from his conversation with Lila lingered, igniting motivation within him like smoldering embers. Today was not merely another day to endure, it was a chance to engage, to forge deeper connections, and to practice the courage he had urged Lila to embrace. As he brewed coffee, doubt clawed at the corners of his consciousness. Each routine task seemed to carry the weight of the decisions he needed to make. Would he follow through on the commitment they had formed? The small goals he envisioned for Lila were now intricately entangled with his own goals, posing a challenge he hadn't anticipated. What if he failed her? Determined, he opened a battered notebook, a quiet companion that had witnessed his unfulfilled aspirations. He made a short list: reach out to Lila, guide her through the day's first victory, and reflect on his own path forward. The sun had fully risen, penetrating through the kitchen window, illuminating the paper, and for a moment it felt like a sign. After he finished breakfast, he texted Lila, suggesting a morning walk. As soon as she replied with an enthusiastic "yes," excitement flickered in him. This wasn't just a way to guide her, it was a pivotal moment in his own evolution. They would navigate their goals together, intertwining their progress and anchoring one another. Upon arriving at the park, he spotted Lila sitting alone on a bench, twirling a strand of hair between her fingers. She looked contemplative, trapped within the confines of her doubt. But when she noticed him, a guarded smile broke through. "Ready to conquer today?" he asked, trying to infuse their meeting with an infectious energy. "I'm trying to be," she admitted, her voice steady, but her eyes betrayed uncertainty. "Let's take that first step then," he encouraged, gesturing toward the path that wound between the trees. As they walked, The morning air wrapped around them, sharp and refreshing, a stark contrast to the heaviness that often engulfed their thoughts. They exchanged stories, revealing snippets of their lives, while silently acknowledging the unvoiced struggles that lingered beneath the surface. After a short while, Alex halted, gesturing to a nearby open space. "Here's our first challenge. Let's sit, take 10 deep breaths, and then write down 3 things we're grateful for today." Lila shot him a skeptical look, but amusement danced at the corners of her lips. "Really, that's the challenge?" He chuckled, exuding a confidence he was still trying to embody. "Yes, really. It's not just about the list. It's about recognizing the good amidst everything else." They both settled onto the grass side by side, with the urgency of the moment pulsating within Alex. He sensed that this was more than a simple exercise. It was a test of their fledgling trust and their shared ability to sit with uncertainty. As they breathed deeply, Alex reflected on his own need for gratitude. What did he appreciate about himself, his journey so far, even the path that led him to this point? With time, they scribbled thoughtfully, and after a few moments, Lila broke the silence. This is harder than I thought. I don't really feel grateful today." Her honesty echoed profoundly, piercing through Alex's previous optimism. Vulnerability had the power to unveil sides of themselves they often tried to mask. Yet he also realized it was essential to confront discomfort. They both had to traverse through dark waters to reach their respective lights. "Maybe we can start smaller," he offered. "What about just one thing?" She hesitated, then sighed. "I'm grateful for the fresh air. It's nice being out here." "That's a solid start," he replied. "I'm grateful for having you join me today." Her eyebrows lifted, surprised by the sincerity of his comment. Though neither of them had yet conquered their inner demons, small victories were unfolding with every shared moment. They continued to swap their lists, each facing their insecurities, slowly building a bridge between their hearts. Yet beneath the dawning connection, a gnawing intuition buzzed within Alex, something deeper and darker. He couldn't ignore the unease creeping back, a reflection of unresolved tension lying in the shadows of their past. Would Lila's previous experiences in the world be as illuminating for him as they were treacherous? As their brief exercise wrapped up, thoughts spun manically. Who were they to rely on one another so deeply? The stakes were high, and as bonds formed, so did new expectations. Was he truly equipped to shoulder Lila's burdens while facing his own? Unbeknownst to them, the journey had begun to reveal layers of resilience that neither had anticipated. Yet, certainty evaded him. There were unseen challenges that awaited, questions surrounding each unfolding layer of their shared journey. Soar to conquer, or tremble and withdraw. With lingering doubt spiraling within him as they rose to their feet, Alex pondered what obstacles lay ahead, each step forward liberating yet suffocating. How far could they navigate their own inner storms before colliding? The next lesson loomed, an inevitable confrontation with the unknown that awaited just beyond the horizon. The cool breeze caressed Alex's face as he and Lila resumed their stroll through the park, but his mind was racing with the weight of their budding connection. He watched her step lightly, seemingly lost in thought. Each moment spent with her pulled at the threads of his own insecurities, awakening a part of himself he had long buried beneath layers of self-doubt. "What's on your mind?" Lila's voice cut through his reverie, her curiosity evident. Her ability to read him was both startling and refreshing, igniting a flicker of courage within him. "Just thinking about how important this is," he replied, glancing sideways at her. "It feels like we're on the edge of something transformative." "What do you mean?" she asked, tilting her head. "I'm starting to see how we can lift each other up, but it also makes me wonder if I'm capable of being that person for you," Alex admitted, wrestling with the vulnerability that prickled under his skin. Her expression softened, and she considered his words carefully. Sometimes just showing up for someone is more than enough. You don't have to have all the answers. Her insight struck a chord. For years, Alex had prided himself on being the one with solutions, but here he was, struggling with his newfound role. Leading Lila felt like walking a tightrope, one misstep away from falling into the depths of mutual uncertainty. As they reached a small clearing topped with vibrant autumn foliage, Lila suddenly paused, her gaze fixed on the patch of wildflowers nearby. "Can we talk about what we really want? I mean, not just gratitude lists, but goals and dreams." The way she framed it made Alex's pulse quicken. This wasn't merely a conversation, it was the foundation upon which they could build something real. "Absolutely. Why don't you start?" Lila took a deep breath, grounding herself as she spoke. "I want to be more confident in myself. I've always held back because of my past. I want to achieve something I can be proud of. To feel capable, you know?" "I resonate with that," he replied, realizing that they were both grappling with the same shadows that threatened their growth. "For me, it's about overcoming self-doubt. I've spent years feeling stuck, and each time I try to elevate myself, fear pulls me back." Their conversation danced between hopes and fears, a rhythm unfurling between them. With each shared aspiration, their individual paths began to shimmer in the light of collective understanding. Alex noticed his heart quickening, not from anxiety, but from an emerging sense of purpose. "Maybe we can set goals for each other," Lila proposed, her eyes sparkling with the fire of their discussion. "Something that pushes us, but is also realistic. What if I challenge you to try something new this week, something that scares you, like joining a class of some sort?" Lila paused, biting her lip. "Are you willing to commit to challenging yourself as well? Something that pushes your comfort zone?" A rush of adrenaline surged through him. It felt like the universe was crackling around them, urging him forward. "Yes, I'll commit to taking a public speaking course. I need to overcome that fear." Lila's expression shifted from surprise to admiration. "That's amazing. I'll sign up for a painting class. I know it's silly, but I've always wanted to, and I can't keep putting it off." They stood before each other, the air thick with exhilaration and anxiety. This new trajectory was less about overseeing and more about supporting. They could be each other's accountability partners, promoting growth as they rose together. Yet, beneath this palpable excitement lay an undercurrent of uncertainty. What if their dreams collided with harsh reality? What if the challenges they embraced dismantled the fragile connection they'd forged? As the sun began its descent, bathing the landscape in hues of orange and pink, Alex felt something shift within him. Each step etched a new inscription on his journey, intertwining Lila's ambitions with his own. This shared commitment could deepen their bond or expose vulnerabilities that were insurmountable. Yet as determination surged, so did a flicker of anxiety. What consequences awaited them once they took those leaps of faith? The evening air chilled slightly, and as they headed back toward the park entrance, Alex's excitement mingled with apprehension. They were broadening their horizons, but the edges of their uncharted territories sparkled with danger and uncertainty. "Ready for what's ahead?" Lila asked, glancing at him. "For the challenges?" "Absolutely." His voice felt steadier than it had earlier. "But what if it doesn't go as planned?" Her words hung between them, heavy with implications. Alex swallowed hard, the heaviness of their vulnerabilities intertwining with both hope and doubt. "Then we face it together," he asserted, even as doubt mirrored in his own heart. The moment of truth awaited, an inevitable confrontation with not just their aspirations, but with the shadows of their past. Would they rise, or would they fall? With those thoughts swirling like the fallen leaves around their feet, Alex felt the weight of resolution pressing against his chest. Ahead of them lay a labyrinth of discoveries, both exhilarating and terrifying. Would they emerge transformed, or would they risk unraveling what had begun to bind them together? The following week began with an electrifying buzz in Alex's stomach as he prepared for the public speaking course he had signed up for. Each day leading up to it was shrouded in a mixture of resolve and gnawing doubt. Although Lila's encouragement looped in his mind, it was the thought of standing in front of a crowd, vulnerable and exposed, that made his palms sweat and heart race. Could he truly face the audience, especially when he often struggled to articulate his thoughts, even with Lila? He arrived at the community center a little early, hoping to steal a moment to gather himself. His reflection in the glass doors revealed the tightness around his eyes and the way his shoulders were hunched, a physical manifestation of the battle waging within. He caught a glimpse of participants trickling in, each one seemingly composed, each with their own fears cloaked in bravado. Alex found a seat in the back and practiced his breathing, inhaling through his nose and exhaling through his mouth. But the tension didn't dissipate. Instead, it grew sharper, echoing every fear he had ever nurtured. The instructor entered, a confident woman in her 40s, with electric energy that commanded the room. Alex felt his instinctive response to retreat tug at him, urging him to abandon ship before he had invested too much. "Welcome. We're here to learn, share, and ultimately grow into our best selves," she announced, her voice warm yet piercing through the ambient chatter. Alex's heart thudded. There it was again, the idea of growth, flashing before him like a neon sign. What was he doing here? Was he really ready to face the parts of himself he had hidden for so long? As the session unfolded, they engaged in icebreaker exercises, standing up, introducing themselves, sharing their fears of public speaking. Each participant's story resonated, illuminating the common threads of anxiety that bound them together. When Lila's name echoed in his mind, he could almost feel her presence beside him, reminding him of their shared commitment. It tinged his fear with motivation. He wanted this. He needed this. When his turn came, he pushed aside his instinct to retreat and stood up, heart pounding like a drum in his chest. He looked around, locking eyes with sympathetic faces. "Hi, I'm Alex," he began, his voice quaking slightly. "I struggle with self-doubt, especially when it comes to speaking in front of others. But I'm here because I want to change that." As he spoke the truth that had haunted him for years, a surprising weight lifted. The vulnerability bubbled up from somewhere deep within, shoving aside years of fear. Each word came out more fluidly, and to Alex's astonishment, he felt the crowd's support pulling him up, as if they were collectively rooting for him. Perhaps all those years of silence and hesitation had merely set the stage for this moment of clarity. By the end of the session, Alex felt a fire ignited inside him, a burning ember of potential that seemed impossibly far away just days prior. That evening, he called Lila, laughter dancing in his voice. "You won't believe it. I actually spoke in front of the class. I felt nervous, but I survived." "Of course you did. I told you that you were capable." "What you said matters," she replied, her enthusiasm radiating through the phone. He could hear her smile. "Now you have to tell me how the painting class went," he urged, eager to hear about her experiences. "I'm getting there, but I walked in, and it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. I was terrified, but when I finally started, it just clicked. I had so much fun." Similarly, their conversation began to weave around their shared experiences as they excitedly exchanged stories of triumphs and challenges. However, as Alex settled into bed that night, he turned the day over in his mind, feeling a flicker of anxiety gnaw at the edges of his newfound confidence. This was just the beginning. What would happen when the next class arrived? Would this momentum sustain, or would he fold back into the safety of silence? These questions lingered ominously, and even as he drifted to sleep, they hovered in the corners of his mind, casting a shadow. The upcoming challenge threatened to crush the warmth he felt from his small victory, reminding him that with each stride he took toward growth, the stakes ahead only grew higher. The following day, a seemingly innocent message from Lila would shift everything once more, catapulting them both into a confrontation with the very doubts that had shackled them. Would they lean into this momentum together, or would their insecurities derail their journey? Lila's message arrived like a jolt, a sudden reminder that as much as they were growing, shadows still loomed over their aspirations. "Hey, can we talk? I've been rethinking some things." The simplicity of her words struck Alex deeply. The excitement from yesterday's public speaking triumph dulled instantly, replaced by a swell of urgency and concern. Unsure of what awaited, he responded quickly, arranging to meet in the park later that afternoon. As Alex made his way there, unease settled in his stomach. What challenges lurked behind her message? He couldn't shake the feeling that the fragile thread of their connection was taut, ready to snap under the weight of their shared fears. When he arrived, he spotted Lila seated on their usual bench, absorbing the essence of the vibrant landscape around her. Yet something lingered in her demeanor, a tension that colored the air with hesitation. "Hey," she greeted, attempting a smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Hey," he replied, taking a seat beside her, the tension palpable. "What's going on?" With a deep breath, Lila leaned in, her gaze fixed on her hands. "I took some time to reflect, and I realized I'm not sure if I'm genuinely ready for this whole journey. The more I think about it, the more I feel this impulse to pull back." His heart sank. He had sensed this moment brewing, and now it was happening. "But we're doing this together," he reminded her gently. "We've made commitments to ourselves." "Yes, and that's what scares me. What if I fail? What if all I do is drag you down?" She paused, her voice thick with unspoken fears. "It's easier to hide behind walls than to take risks and face the possibility of being hurt again." Alex felt the sting of her words resonating with his own latent fears. "I feel it too. Every time I step outside my comfort zone, I worry I'll fall flat. But isn't that the point? We're here to face the struggles, together, to build something real from those fears." A flicker of vulnerability crossed Lila's face, and he could sense her internal conflict. "But what if it's not enough?" "It's enough that we try," he urged, taking a breath to steady himself. "We can redefine what it means to fail, and it isn't about dragging each other down. It's about lifting each other up, despite the struggles that lie ahead." Lila's expression softened slightly, but doubt still danced in her eyes. "What if I can't meet the expectations? What if I can't even go through with the painting class?" "Then we reassess. We recalibrate together. You don't have to be perfect, nor do I. We can be a mess together." The tension began to ebb as they navigated their fears, slowly weaving threads of understanding. "You don't understand what's at stake for me," she whispered, eyes welling with unshed tears. "Every time I try to reach out, it feels like I'm opening a wound that can't heal." "I do understand," he insisted, emotions swelling within him. "This past week was a struggle for me, too. I faced that stage filled with those same fears, and it reminded me of moments when I felt entirely lost. But it's in those moments we discover who we truly are." Silence stretched as Lila absorbed his words, and in that moment he made a decision that shifted everything. What if we abandon the concept of perfection? What if our goal is the willingness to be vulnerable with each other instead? To invite those fears in and let them be part of this journey? Tentatively, Lila nodded. "Maybe. If we can support each other through the insecurities and allow ourselves to be real, it could work." "That's the spirit," he encouraged, smiling for the first time in what felt like ages. "Let's redefine our expectations. If you're not ready for that painting class, maybe we can explore other creative outlets. Let's take our time." Lila's gaze brightened, filled with a mixture of gratitude and acceptance. "Okay, I think I can do that. Thank you for being patient with me." They sat in silence for a moment, the shadows of doubt and fear beginning to recede, replaced by a tentative hope. There was power in their shared vulnerability, a momentum that shifted with each breakthrough conversation. As they made plans for the upcoming week, Alex felt something solidify within him. They weren't just navigating their fears, they were creating a roadmap laden with room for growth, understanding, and compassion. They were both equipped to face their demons, not alone, but as allies in each other's journeys. Walking home that evening, Alex reflected on their conversation, the air around him thick with renewed conviction. Each hurdle and setback transformed into a powerful opportunity to deepen their connection. He wasn't just Alex, the man who rescued a stranger. He was a man reclaiming his narrative with purpose. The next day dawned bright, filling Alex with a sense of anticipation. He resolved to speak even more openly with Lila, both to solidify their connection and to affirm their commitment to supporting one another through the complexities of healing. But as the day unfolded, he also understood that embracing his vulnerabilities would require immense courage. Would he be able to rise above the hurt of his past? With their upcoming endeavors ahead, he recognized that true transformation stemmed from their willingness to confront not only their insecurities, but also the shadows lurking just outside the light. A new chapter awaited them, and he was ready to forge a path together into the unknown, one step at a time. Time and challenges would reveal whether they would rise or stumble, but for now that prospect felt invigorating rather than daunting. Together they would conquer their fears, and together they would thrive. "Are you ready for tomorrow?" Alex texted Lila that evening, a smile creeping onto his face as he hit send. "More than ever," she replied, almost immediately. This time, the excitement in her words seemed unmasked. It was a simple exchange, but in its light lay the promise of new beginnings. As night settled in, Alex stood by his window, gazing at the stars emerging in the sea of darkness. The journey ahead remained uncertain, but clarity brightened his perspective. He was no longer just Alex, the lost soldier. He was Alex, a mentor, a friend, and a beacon of resilience, ready to step into a future redefined. Lila's name echoed in his heart, affirming the understanding that this journey would ultimately shape them both. With a newfound sense of determination, Alex closed his eyes, vowing to embrace whatever awaited him, no matter how daunting or exhilarating the challenge. As dawn approached, he lay awake, a renewed purpose igniting within him, silently begging the universe to push him forward into the uncharted journey of growth and connection that awaited. And for that, he was ready. Now it's your turn to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that can inspire your own journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because your support really makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this final chapter. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share instantly this story with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion, and remind them that transformation is always within reach. You need to subscribe now and be part of this community of overcoming and inspiring stories. Don't wait even one more second. Jump on board and join us now.